Sobering news tonight. The oil leak in the Gulf of Mexico has now eclipsed the Exxon Valdez disaster as the biggest oil spill in U.S. history. What's more, scientists say the oil is gushing at a rate 4 times greater than BP first estimated. For its part, the oil giant says it is making progress in its latest attempt to plug the leak. A lot of big developments on this story, so we want to start with our science correspondent, Bob McDonald, to walk us through some of this. So, Bob, there has been some progress, but why is it taking so long?
Well, Wendy, what they're trying to do is stuff a lot of mud down into that hole, and they're doing more than just plugging the top of the hole. They're actually trying to drive the oil back down underground, as far down as they possibly can, because they want to make sure that the plug is really, really long so that its weight will be greater than the pressure of the oil trying to come up, because this oil is under tremendous pressure from within the earth to come out. So they have to overcome that, and they want to make sure they've got enough down there before they stop the mud and put the concrete on top and finally seal it off. So that's why they're doing a wait-and-see kind of approach to it.
So how long till the cement?
Well, they're saying it's going to take another 24 hours before they know. What they need to do is stop pushing the mud down and see if it rises back up again. If it doesn't, then they'll be ready for the cement.
And if that doesn't work?
Well, if that doesn't work, then they're going to try what's called a junk shot. Junk shot.
Okay.
And that is where they put even thicker stuff in, and it's going to be a concrete mixture of golf balls, rope, hair, and anything else that's sticky that'll fill up that hole and maybe even plug it that way. If that doesn't work, then they got to get to more drastic measures. But it's getting pretty serious.
Well, yeah, and today they said it's bigger, the worst ever, worse than Exxon Valdez.
Yes, and the difference between this and the Exxon Valdez, the Exxon Valdez was a ship that hit shore in a sound, in a controlled and a contained area. So there was a lot of oil, but it didn't really go very far. Here we have oil in the middle of a very large gulf with a lot of people living around it. So not only in the volume of oil, but the implications are far, far greater than the Exxon Valdez.
Wow. Okay, we'll keep watching. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Wendy.
Bob McDonald is our science correspondent. So today's progress didn't stem the criticism aimed at the Obama government hours after the head of the agency that oversees the U.S. offshore drilling resigned. Barack Obama defended his administration's response. Our senior Washington correspondent, Neil McDonald, has that story unfolding in Washington tonight. Neil.
Well, the president talked tough, Wendy, and he talked straight, but he had some ugly competition. If you're an American contemplating the worst environmental disaster in your history, do you focus on this?
In case you're wondering, who's responsible? I take responsibility.
Or do you keep watching this, the relentless 24/7 underwater video monster? Whatever's actually gushing out of the sea floor, this image is everywhere, all the time, dominating all discussion on the surface.
We've deployed over 3 million feet of total boom.
As Obama talked today of containing the spill, TV networks put the live gusher feed right beside the president as if to contradict him. As the news conference wore on, the gusher grew and the president shrank. No reassurance can overcome competition like this. Nonetheless, Obama tried. He manned up to his duty.
From the moment this disaster began, the federal government has been in charge of the response effort.
He made promises.
We are going to stop it.
He even related an almost hapless-sounding message from local officials on the Gulf Coast.
And they wanted me to remind everybody that except for 3 beaches in Louisiana, all of the Gulf's beaches are open, they are safe, and they are clean.
But that's hard to square with this, or with the increasingly nightmarish images from the surface as the slick separates and spreads.
It could impact from Louisiana to the panhandle of Florida.
Meanwhile, Louisiana chokes.
It's a ghost town. I got to answer to 1,500 people. Mr. David, when we going to get money? When we going to get our first check?
And everything that I know and love is at risk. Even though this is martialized.
So, tomorrow, Obama visits the Gulf again. A president who accepts responsibility but is helpless to actually stop the disaster, meeting with desperate people who ultimately believe their government can do anything as long as it really wants to. And meanwhile, Wendy, the entire country just keeps staring at that video feed.
Thanks, Neil. Neil McDonald in Washington. Another concern facing the Gulf region, hurricane season. It begins next Tuesday, and today scientists warned this could be a fairly active one. CBC meteorologist Claire Martin is here to tell us what that could mean for all that oil. So, Claire, that doesn't sound so good.
No, it really doesn't, Wendy. In fact, one of the hurricane forecasters that I talked to earlier today, well, they're coining the phrase hellish to describe this forecast, and for so many reasons. But here's a few of those reasons. If just one storm hits, and we're not even talking a hurricane, if a tropical storm hits in and around the area, work on the oil leak will cease immediately, so we won't move any further forward. A storm surge, just a small storm surge of 5 to 10 meters, will bring that oil inland, and quite substantially. If we had a track following, say, towards Katrina, as we saw in 2005, that would bring oil potentially up to Lake Pontchartrain. It will also accelerate coastal erosion because the grasses that hold the marshes together are actually dying away, and yeah, it's basically going to smear oil across the entire Gulf. I have to agree, this is a hellish forecast. Wendy?
Thanks, Claire. Claire Martin in Vancouver.